What's up, YouTube fam? Something that's been bothering me for a while, and I need to talk about it like yesterday. So I want to talk about the pretendians. What is a pretendian? A pretendian is a nigga, a black person, a person of African descent. Yes, all black people come from Africa. I don't give a fuck what part of the world you live in. I don't give a fuck what culture you subscribe to. If your skin is dark and your hair is coarse, you have predominantly African DNA in your blood. And that is a fact. Now, pretendians are people, black people, who believe that black people are Native Americans. They even go so far to say that slavery never happened and that all the black people here were people that were already here. I mean, honestly, how fucking stupid can a person be? You know, there are slave records. There are documents of runaway slaves and everything and slave revolts. And so to deny that slavery happened is just completely fucking ridiculous. I'm not even going to acknowledge and address this shit no more. Like, that's like, if you think slavery didn't happen, bro, you like something's mentally wrong with you. But I would say most black people in America know that slavery happened. But the thing is, they're pretending to be Indians. Or, I'm sorry, Native Americans, because that's so offensive. A lot of Native Americans actually didn't have much contact with African slaves. What people don't realize is by the time slavery was in its peak, a lot of the Native American tribes were already sort of like dwindled away. Some of them have actually merged with white Caucasian people. And the term Blackfoot, the Blackfoot natives are not black. They don't call themselves Blackfoot because of their skin color. They call them Blackfoot because they walked around barefoot and the bottom of their feet was dirty. That's why they adopted the name Blackfoot, which of course in their language was something totally different. You see, the problem is, you know, with slavery is you can trace back Native American tribes. You can trace back origins of Native Americans. So they have a history that you can actually trace back to. When it comes to us, black people, unfortunately, we don't really have much history that we can trace to besides back to Africa. But once we got here in the U.S., we didn't have really like much knowledge about anything else going on. So a lot of black people are walking around here thinking that they're Native Americans. That is a myth. That's a big like folklore that goes on in old black families. What happens is a lot of times the white slave owner would sexually assault one of the slave women, and they will violate our women to the point, you know, where they would make babies with them and shit like that, and they would breed with some of the black slaves, which causes them to come out light-skinned and shit like that. So because of the shame of us being assaulted by white people during slavery, we would come up with this myth that, you know, we're part Native American, or that we have Native, you know, we're more Native American. Now, black people do have Native American in them because, you know, we've been living on the soil and we have shared times with Native Americans. There are certain tribes that took black people in, but there were a lot more tribes that actually tried to enslave us too, so they can get in good favors with the white man. Yes, Native Americans enslaved blacks too. So these things did happen. So the black people with Native American in their blood is very rare. It's a very small percentage of black people that have, oh no, I'm not gonna say a small percentage. It's a small percentage of Native American that's in black people. Meaning most black people only have a very small, tiny amount of Native American. In fact, I would say most black people in America probably have more white Caucasian European DNA than they have Native American DNA. That's a hard pill to swallow. A lot of this shit goes back to the self-hatred. The hatred of African descent, the hatred of being African and looking African, and everything African culture is like bad and inferior. That's how a lot of black people think, which there is some truth to that. You know, I was talking to somebody the other day and saying how, you know, Europeans invented more and they advanced in technology way more than African people have. And it's just, people want to deny it, but it's just the truth. Yeah, it's an ugly truth, but it's still the truth. So, my point really to say this, yeah, we've had some African American people who were who had like a lot of Native American in them. A guy named James Pierce Buckworth, and then there's another guy named George Anga, or George Amba, something like that. I know I'm pronouncing his last name wrong, but these is figures that you can actually look up, and yeah, they were no denying that these people were black and Native American. They were African and Native American, which is very, very rare. Which is an extremely rare species, an extremely rare race, because African and Native Americans are completely they're naturally in like two completely different parts of the world. So for them to come together and merge and for them to breed, it is a beautiful thing. I think, it's a sign of what's it called? Universal love, as they say. But what's not universal is that most black people have Native American in them. That's just not true. Most black people want to be Native American either because they're not educated about the history of Africa, or they just don't want to be African. And I get it, bro. Being from Africa is fucking embarrassing. I will say this to anybody. I don't care if you're Pan-African or not. I consider myself a Pan-Africanist because I want to see Africa prosper. I want to see Africa become a powerhouse like how China and Russia and the United States is. That's what I want to see Africa become. But unfortunately, you got most African people don't even want to be African. So how can there be Pan-Africanism? The thing about that is most Pan-Africanists don't want to admit the fact that, yeah, a lot of Africans are inferior to the rest of the world. And a lot of African culture is inferior to European culture. That's how Europeans ended up enslaving blacks. Listen, when you got one group of people have guns and gunpowder and inventing all type of shit, and then your people is still fucking throwing spears and drinking blood out of a cow's neck, of course the people with the guns and gunpowder is going to take over the people with the spears and drinking blood out of cows' necks. It's just a natural law of nature. You can't expect motherfuckers to respect you and hold you as an equal and like look at you the same way as they are and think that you're on the same level when you're doing things that shows that you have a less not less intelligence but less education. To know about gunpowder may have been an accident discovery, but it's still, you have to be educated on certain things. You have to be educated on how to use gunpowder. African people, for some reason, for so many years, didn't have these things. African people didn't even have a written language till way later. They didn't even use the wheel until way after Europeans were already using wheels. So, when you think about it, bro, being from Africa is embarrassing. I get it. Okay, Africa is an embarrassment to black people. It's like a curse. It's like an embarrassing cloud hanging over our head that we can't shake. So the best thing that black people can come up with is to try to deny that we're even African. It's very fucking foolish. I'm gonna tell you why that's so foolish. Let's say my parents were serial killers, which they're not. My parents are decent folk. But let's say my parents were both serial killers or something, and they were just known for doing a lot of bad things. Let's say they were out here sexually assaulting people and so let's say my mom and father was on some Epstein shit. Okay, and let's say I was adopted from a child because my parents were locked up and taken away from their horrible crimes. Now, let's say my adoptive family or somebody told me that, your real biological parents were these people. And I found out. I'm not going to deny it. Even though I don't like what my parents did, that doesn't mean that I'm not still a byproduct of my parents' DNA. So again, you may not like Africa. You may not like African people. And guess what? They may not like us. But 90% or 80, 75%, I would say, of your DNA comes from those people, comes from African people. Because if you're black and you have woolly textured hair, that is African. Those characteristics are 100% African. So you can't sit here and say you're black and I'm proud to be black, but then turn around and say that you're not African. It's a form of insanity, honestly. And, you know, I want black people to love themselves. Love the way you look, love your hair, everything. But the truth is we don't love ourselves because we don't love the behavior. We do behave in a way that is deemed inferior. And because we got a whole continent of people who behave that way, we have to say that we're not from that continent. Listen, the transatlantic slave trade happened. Over 500,000 people from Africa were taken over here. And if you still got black people here, how the fuck is everybody and their mama claiming to be fucking Native American? Just the numbers don't add up. It's literally impossible. Okay? So everybody can't be Native American. Yes, there are some. There are some people who are predominantly Native American with a little bit of African descent. Those people are very rare. There's only a very few percentage of those. Y'all can look it up. I mean, you can Google this shit, but y'all know even Google lies, I believe. You know, Google's going to twist whatever narrative that the system wants them to twist. But to say that black people don't have any connection with Africa is very fucking foolish. It's very foolish. And honestly, I think like even if Chinese people lived here and mixed with other breeds of DNA, no matter what, if they have Chinese characteristics, they're still fucking Chinese. So don't be a fucking pretendian. Y'all love who you are, know who you are, and just embrace your African ancestors. Because our ancestors didn't scream and cry and get beaten and tortured and all type of shit just for us to sit here and deny that we're related to them. How do you think your ancestors feel, man? Think about that, man. And again, you don't have to like the modern day Africans. You don't even gotta like the past day Africans. But my nigga, if you look like a nigga, talk like a nigga, you're probably African. All right? That's all I gotta say. Until next time, peace.